That's right. It's time for the Dog and Chicken Show.
All right, welcome everybody. This is episode 2. Dose. Still got to do some editing on that first one. That was a little clunky, and I got a little mouthy, and yeah,
Well,
it
it
happens.
turns out YouTube has done a absolutely piss poor job of making it able to edit your videos once they're uploaded. Who would have known, right? A video site with terrible capabilities of video editing. Awesome.
Yeah, it is terrible, just plain terrible. Anyway, so kind of pick up where we left off. We kind of chatted some future topics last time we were at it last week, and one of them that came up, and I honestly I had my mind made up about this topic before you brought it up, but man, I looked into it this week, and I don't know if my mind's changed, but I got some other things to think about here. So, with without any more mystery to it, paying college players. We us being from Nebraska, of course, a long history of college football and love the sport, and it's a huge billion-dollar industry right now. NCAA is raking in this money as a nonprofit organization, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, off the backs of kids working their ass off, and a lot of times black kids that are from poor neighborhoods many times, and they're looking for a way out. They're looking for a way to take care of their families and give their moms houses and all this. They want to go pro. Great. Love the dream. Love it. May not be the most realistic thing, but man, if that's all you got to go for it. So I'm not hating on the kids in any way, shape, or form for going for this, but $1 billion on March Madness alone, and none of those kids seen a dime from that specific time frame and that specific, like, those games. But they did get compensation. They got compensation from scholarships, and being on TV. So that's the argument: is what's fair, what's not fair, and what's worth the payment. So I guess I'm going to hand it over to you, Tony, and run through the whole thing on your thoughts, where you stand with it, and what you want to see happen with the NCAA.
So essentially, like you just said, it really depends on the type of athlete, the area they're from, where they go. That's what it boils down to. And especially, let's look at it from a purely sports perspective. Obviously, football, basketball, those are your two big money-making sports, right? No question about it. Like you said, that's a lot of money off of March Madness alone. That's insane amounts of money that the university is, like you said, making off of 18 to 20-some-year-old kids. Is it right? Probably not. But what can we do about it? Here's the bottom line. Why do they not get paid right now? Well, there's a few reasons. Because, A, we have this fictitious organization called the NCAA that kind of appeared out of nowhere and just started pushing people around and said, hey, these are the rules, you're going to follow them. And for some reason, nobody questioned that. Okay, fine. But then also the understanding of these are college players, and when college athletes, when that became a thing, that was never going to be an issue. Why would we pay the players? Well, because as the sport evolved, TV revenue and all that became a big, big thing. And that's where we are now. With the sport having evolved into the money-making juggernaut that it is now, why can't these kids get some of the kickback? Well, personally, I think there are ways to do it without actually saying, okay, you are making a salary for based off of what you are doing on the field, on the court for this university. That's the only way you can do it, is specifically for me by likeness rights from video games, tuition, books, food, room and board, stuff such as that. I think that specifically is the best way you can get these kids paid, get something back in their pocket without it looking like too much of a job. Because if we're going to start paying the players at some point, at what point do we say, okay, it's all right, forget college altogether? If you're good enough, just go pro right out of the gate. Screw it. Like, what is it right now? I think is basketball. You have to do 1 year, or is it 2?
Yeah, it's 1 year for basketball and 3 for football.
3. Yep, 3. Yeah, and like you said, at one point, if you're just paying these players buku amounts of money, the flip side to that, of course, is do they even end up bothering to go pro because they made how much money in college? You look at your Auburns, your Alabamas, those big juggernauts in the SEC and football, even Kentucky or some of those schools in the Big Ten for basketball. Yeah, it begs a question, and not all kids are going to end up going pro, and that's the harsh reality of the fact. Like, what percentage of the Division I FBS players in football actually end up going pro? It's not very high, considering you've got 2 FBS schools right now. How many actually get drafted? It's an insane amount of players that you have at these schools compared to what actually ends up playing at the next level, be it NFL, CFL, arena football, so on and so forth. How many are going to end up going to play at the next level and get paid to do it, and how many are going back to work at dad's used car lot? I'll hand it back to you for a minute.
Yeah. So good points there. So what this boils down to is there's 3 schools of thought. There is, you pay every single collegiate athlete. You don't pay every collegiate athlete and leave it the way it is right now. And then there's kind of the middle ground to where, and you hinted at it, was the intellectual property rights of my likeness and my character. If you put me in a video game, or I want to sign my autograph, or I want to spend my personal time with another group that's going to pay me money, then I can have that money aside from NCAA, aside from the university. And right now, NCAA does not allow that. And you get in big trouble for doing anything, to make any money. Kids, $300 of gain profit from doing a stupid decision or not understanding that they were getting a gift. They get, suspended and unable to play in games and unable to perform. And it's frustrating that something so silly. There was one where a coach flew this kid back home because his one of his parents had passed away. So he bought him a ticket to fly him home so he could see the funeral because he didn't have the money to do it himself. And the NCAA said that was against the rules and suspends the kid. Like, they keep adjusting these rules. So, to be fair, when crap like this happens, they do amend and adjust. But at the end of the day, seriously, how is that an issue? I'm going to go back to your point on, so the NCAA popped up. The reason the NCAA was founded, from my understanding and what I've looked into, was for safety. It was for the kids' safety, and to you don't want the juggernauts of Texas and Ohio State and all these guys playing football against Grambling every freaking week. Like, these kids will get killed. So it was divisions, it was safety, it was regulations on how you play the game, which is a good idea to start with. That's what a lot of things really, that's how unions started. There's a lot of good things that come from that thought process, but then it becomes so big, and what do you do with it? Then you mentioned how many players actually make it pro. It is crazy low. It's barely over 1%. If I did the math right between basketball and football. I didn't look at anything else because nobody really cares about the other sports. Sorry, baseball, but really,
that's fair.
And it's barely over 1%. And these kids are busting their ass to get, not only, they keep that scholarship and keep the academic levels as high as the standards call for, but the time it takes to do that, while you're not only, you got practice, you got to research film, There's so many things throughout the day, and you have to keep your grades up.
Yep.
These kids ain't sleeping. They're getting fed now. That was a thing in the past where they weren't getting food and they had issues with that. That's not an issue anymore. But from what I understand, anyway, I'm not there. I don't know.
Right.
But from what I understand right now, it's a time issue, and they dedicate all of their time to the sport, and at sometimes media obligations that they don't profit from, and their name gets thrown out there,
Sure.
and they don't get anything back on this. And meanwhile, they're chasing to keep this GPA as high as they can, so they can even freaking play to begin with. So it frustrates the hell out of me with that. So, like I said, the 3 schools of thought: don't pay them at all. They're already getting paid enough with scholarships. The middle ground is probably, hey, great, they got a scholarship. Why can't you share your likeness and who you are? And, like you said, video games and local advertisements, whatever, make your money off of that. That's great. And then just flat out pay every single college athlete.
Yep.
is the third school thought.
Yeah,
So,
and that's really the only 3 you can even remotely consider, because once you start getting intricate and you start doing subdivision levels of something in between there in the middle ground, it's going to get so convoluted. We're going to end up with a situation like we already have now, which is we are illegally paying these players anyway, because some of these people are getting houses and cars and cash and insane amounts of perks for playing the game under the table illegally, and that's why these schools are getting into trouble. That's a topic we should touch on another time. But like you were saying, it's unreal the amount of energy, time, focus that a lot of these kids have to put into just to play the game, plus the schoolwork. I get it. Like you said, yeah, it's completely unfair that they are abused to play the sport for a university who's making the money and they're not seeing a dime from it. It absolutely is. But I'm going to take it back a step and go with the old adage of, well, they're there to learn. They're not there to play, even though a lot of them do just flat out say, I'm here to play. I'm here to get to the next level. I don't care about a scholarship. But for a lot of these kids, what happens in 10 to 15 years, if you even make it that far, when you do make it pro, say you get drafted, say you go to a team, you only go to 1-2 teams, you get 15 years out of your career, you've got all this money, then what? Not everybody can go be in the booth. That's where that scholarship comes into play. You need that. Even if you think you don't, when the game is done with you, you have got to have a fallback. And that's where that scholarship becomes that much more important, because, yeah, not everybody's going to end up in the booth. Not everybody's going to end up a coach. There's only so many of those jobs to go around. So, yeah, it's a double-edged sword, man. But, yeah, like you were saying with the 3 levels of thinking, right now we're not paying them at all, so all the illegal transactions happen under the table. That's what's getting them to campus. That's what's getting them on teams. That's what they're getting their parents in the meantime until they can go pro. The middle ground, specifics of like likeness rights and so on and so forth. That's kind of where I'm at, because if you go to that other line of thinking, pay everybody. Okay, that's what you touched on, right? Well, how do you go about that, considering you've got FBS, FCS, Division II, Division III, NAIA, all these different levels of college football? And then how can you pay the kicker from Tulane the same thing you're going to pay the quarterback at USC? You can't, because where's the money coming from? Is it coming from the NCAA? Hell no, it's not. It's coming from your university. So if it's coming from the university and these players are getting a paycheck from the university, where are the best players going to go? This completely flattens recruiting. Their recruiting is done. Coaches ain't going to do squat anymore, because the best players are going to go to the biggest schools with the biggest paychecks. So you don't even need recruiting anymore. You can completely eliminate that process altogether. Get rid of the signing day, everything, because the best athletes, the 5 stars, are all going to end up at the blue blood programs with the deep pocketbooks. That's the only way that's going to happen. So it's completely unfair. And basically you're going to end up with say your top 30 to 40 big time universities, and everything under that squat because they're not going to be able to afford to keep up with the other ones. So basically, in essence, what that would end up causing is a lower division NFL. In all reality, you're already paying them to be the best at the best school, be the lower tier NFL, and eventually the two might as well just merge at that point. And I mean, I'm talking years and years down the road, decades even, but eventually that's what it's going to become. So I'm more that middle ground thinking of the line of, why can't we have a video game? Why can't they get likeness rights for that? And I'm not even saying give them the money for the likeness of the video games, like you said, the press appearances, so on and so forth. Anything that they should be getting money from for their likeness, for their time, they should be getting it. But don't give it to them. You put it in an account for that player. Once their eligibility is done and expired and over, and they're off campus, no longer an athlete for that university, then they can access that account. Then they can have that monetary gain. Why? Because then you're not technically paying players. It's an ex-player. And what's the best part of this? You're not giving boatloads of cash to 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who have absolutely no idea how to handle that kind of amount of cash. And let's face it, if they have access to that kind of cash while they're playing, they're not going to be as good a player anyway, are they? We're going to be doing a lot more partying with a lot more money. It's just going to create a lot of problems. So me, personally, that's my thought. Bring back the game. Give them that video game money. Hell, even the bowl payouts can be bonuses, whatever. Put it in an account that they can have once their college playing days are done and over. And that's going to give a lot more incentive, not just to those guys going pro, but that's going to give a lot of incentive to those guys who are going back to work for Dad's used car lot. They're going to have some scratch to look back on their playing days and say, hey, I actually have something to say for it other than a record and a letter jacket. Thoughts?
No, you're spot on. So as you kind of go through it, so I'm going to start with the faults of the argument that just pay them all. So where's that money coming from? Like, this is I know they're a nonprofit organization, but you got to look at this as a business. So how much money do I have coming in? What are my expenses? And how am I going to divvy this out? Now, I may have, Tony, who's an all-star, awesome quarterback, coming in and say, I'm a recruiter from Nebraska, and then Ohio State's offering to pay him $100,000 more for him to come sign there. Okay, so that $100,000 that Ohio State added on to what I added or offered originally, that took away some other kid's opportunity at a certain point because they only got so much money too. So that's unfortunate. But if they really want that guy, then what happens when that guy gets injured? Like, you just blew it. Like, you're done. So
yeah, that's paying them to play for a career, or are you paying them to play per appearance, per game, per play? Yeah, exactly. How do you even determine what amounts they get? Because we're talking, this is basically got to be based off of the salary pay. This cannot be an hourly wage. It cannot be. I don't see any other way of doing it other than a salary-based pay. If you're talking pay everybody.
And so that's where the problem comes in, is if you have to give these like a salary-based pay, you don't give them a scholarship. They have to pay for their own college. They have to file their own taxes. They have to do everything like they were a pro. You lose amateurism. So I want to touch on amateurism real quick before I go any deeper into just throwing I'm just going to throw water on the fire when it comes to this, paying them flat out, because to me it sounds just god-awful ridiculous. But I'll get to that in a minute. Amateurism. Defined, really, it's somebody who plays for the love of the game. So, as a college student, I sign up. Right now, they're not amateurs. Just look at it right now. They are not. You look at your top recruited quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, defensive linemen, you name it. They are going to the school that's going to put them on TV. They're going to the school that's going to give them the best shot to the big house. They want that contract. they are going to go to the school that's going to take care of them the most. Now, every now and then you might see, oh, hey, he decided not to go to Alabama and decided to go to LSU because they had, I don't know, maybe it was closer to home. Maybe they like the coach more. Maybe they like the environment. Whatever. But still, they're going to make it. Like, that's LSU. That's Alabama. Like,
Yeah.
on. Like,
Yep, that's exactly right.
the amateurism
track record speaks volumes when it comes to the next level. And the SEC, geography based, has the best talent in the country. So, of course, the NFL is going to be looking at the SEC the closest because they're constantly churning out the best athletes, churning out the most wins, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, amateurism kind of goes out the window when there's recruiting is basically done for itself in that region, right? They're basically considered the entry level to the NFL because a lot of them are going to end up in the NFL. So like you said, amateurism, the love of the game. And I'll just flat out say that's personally why I prefer college football to the NFL. I like the NFL. Don't get me wrong. It's fun. It's fun to watch. It's fun to have a team. But going back to it, all those players that are not going to play at the next level, those are the guys I like watching. Those are the guys I like seeing the most on Saturdays because there's not another level for them. They're playing for the love of the game. They're playing because they want to play. They're playing because they're young enough to still be able to play the game at a physical and high level. That's fun for me. Not the guys who are there who are done after their junior year for sure, if not sooner if they can't get out and find a loophole. I'm not watching for those guys. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'd love to have a whole team of those guys, but that's not how it works, especially here at a place like Nebraska. And touching back on that, like with the TV rights, like you want to go to a place that you're going to be put on TV. Well, that was why Nebraska became so successful as it did decades ago, because Nebraska was on TV all the time. They had the best chance of getting on TV with a handful of other schools. So if you're playing on TV a lot of the time, and there's only a handful of channels to go around, handful of slots, you want to go play there. And that's why Nebraska got a lot of those great players. Now, when you can tune in on a Wednesday night and see two MAC schools go at it, you can go anywhere and get seen, but you're going to go somewhere with the track record of getting you at the next level if that's your goal. If you're not just playing college to play college, you're going to end up in the place that you're going to be put on TV, that you can leave after your junior year with great stats and have a great position from going from that school to the NFL and getting a good paycheck immediately, a legal one.
Yes, a legal one. So yeah, and kind of going back to my point of just, so if we go back to the thought of we're just going to give you money to come play for us. So that doesn't include a scholarship. So say, Tony, I'm gonna recruit you. I offer you $100,000 to come play at the University of Nebraska and be my quarterback. So of that $100,000, say that's just for the 1 year. So of that $100,000, that's gonna pay for your scholarship is $60,000, depending on what school you're at. I don't know what Nebraska's is right now, especially in-state, out-of-state tuition. But then you think room and board, you think of everything else that's going to come with it, with books and just day-to-day crap that you got to deal with. And then what's our tax rate? Like, take a chunk out, not only for federal, but Nebraska's state tax isn't the greatest, so you got to take a chunk out for that. You're not going to get any more money than what you have. You just have more control over how you spend it. And what I like, to your point, am I going to give a 18-year-old kid $100,000 and tell him, hey, you can come to one of the greatest universities on the planet, but you got to make sure you manage your bills and pay your bills and do your taxes? Like, dude, they're not like,
yeah, that ain't going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. Now, you're going to have the exceptions. You're going to have some really, really good kids, and a lot of people could handle it. But you're not going to hear about them. You're going to hear about the outcasts that screw up their entire career, their college career, their life by just being dumb. And then here's the other part. This is what scares the hell out of me. is when you start having this thought process to where you're going to give them a contract, you get 1 year and I'm going to pay you $100,000. You figure out what to do with all that money, blah, blah, blah. But you have to still go to class. Now you don't care what their GPA is at that point because you signed a contract. Maybe you can include that GPA. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt of, hey, I'm going to make you sign this contract, but you got to keep X amount for your GPA throughout the time. Okay, great. But I have to hire an agent. Who's heard of a great agent? Like, and maybe agents get a bad rap. I don't know. But come on. Do you want your 18-year-old kid to have to go find an agent to go to college? What the hell is that? That's really what this will entail. And then you're going to have kids being taken advantage not only by the NCAA, but then by some crooked freaking agent because what are the numbers? How many kids are going to need an agent at this point? It's going to create a whole freaking pond of scum that are going to come out looking for this money. You're going to have that show me the money thought process popping up from the depths of the darkness all across this country, and kids are going to get screwed over, and the schools aren't going to be able to help them with it because it's not in the contract, and they're going to wash their hands, and you're going to watch these kids suffer and lose their careers over this, or just go into worse financial debt than you would if you just took your scholarship. 60 grand a year for a scholarship over 4 years, that's $240K. Most of the people I know that have a 4-year degree would have been fine with it and just happy enough. Hey, they took care of everything. They paid all the bills. They took care of all that stuff. I just had to make sure I was fed and I made it to class on time. I did what I said I was going to do, and I'm taken care of. Like, now you add the burden of all this extra crap when these kids already have enough to do. They have enough. Now you want to add this? Now I got to meet with the agent. Now I got to make sure I pay all these bills, and just it's just annoying the thought that we pressure these kids who are already struggling in all this and just throw more on their plate because they get a fatter check when really it comes out to about the same amount or even probably less in many scenarios. I don't get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're just taking the money instead of paying for the insane amount that it costs to go to college, and you're giving them that check, and then, yeah, like you said, adding in the tax factor and paying an agent, it kind of defeats the entire purpose. They think they're going to get this money. I can guarantee you, by the time you're 35, you're going to wish that you had that college paid for as opposed to have had $100,000 laying around when you were 19 years old, blowing through it like an idiot. It's the better way to go. Have your college paid for instead of having a fat bank account when you're too dumb to be able to control it anyway. That's just the way it is. And touching on one of the things you brought up to begin with was the NCAA making these rules, and they fluctuate. I mean, what was it? Like Ohio State tattoo gate. You're talking about some guys got some free tattoos. Coach lost his job. Guys lost their entire season. It was this huge punishment. Meanwhile, we had like validated proof of guys showing cash money that they admitted to having from a bag man, and it's like a 1-game suspension. There is zero consistency when it comes to the NCAA actually handing out these punishments for the illegal monetary gains that the players receive. So they don't even know how they're policing it. That's what speaks volumes to me. The fact that, okay, we can't pay these players, but we still haven't even worked out the kinks on what we're going to do when you do pay them, and we say, no, okay, you're in trouble, but let's weigh in on the committee and see what they think we should do. Hey guys, did it? No, we didn't have a plan. 5 games. Really, 5 games? He just flashed $100,000 on Instagram and admitted that he had a handler, but okay, that's fair. What about this guy? His coach bought him a meal. Oh, well, clearly fire the coach. His whole season's gone, and you know what? He's got a younger brother. Make sure he can go to college. That seems fair. Yep, let's do that.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's kind of the Wild West when it comes to some of that stuff. The other thing I wanted to, I'm just going to keep pissing on the fire here. So if we gave all of them just flat out checks instead of scholarships, then where's that money's got to come from somewhere. We talked about this. You got to balance that checkbook, right? So think of all the sports that are funded by football. So now I've heard this argument and I've heard it going several ways. So usually gets a little heated, and this is where we got to be a little careful with this conversation. But I brought up earlier that a lot of this money's brought in off the backs of you know, underprivileged African American kids that are just trying to get out of the bad situation. Now the NCAA, you damn right they're exploiting them. They are taking money from these kids' ability and their passion to get where they want to go. You're absolutely right. That is what is happening. Now, what's happening at the school level, not every school, this is not across the board, but you look at most of these schools and they're not bringing in a net profit. The ones that are, like you said earlier, it's basketball, it's football, they bring in the money. The money that those sports bring in, they offer girls to do all these other sports that honestly just don't generate money. They offer sports to kids that, you know, can't play football and basketball. Maybe they're good at hockey or lacrosse or whatever, you know, and like I said with the female sports, you know, volleyball, softball, go on and on and on. These college programs have these in place because of basketball and football pay for them. And yeah, the NCAA is making a ton of money off of these kids, off of their back, and that sucks. It's terrible. But look at all the people that are benefiting from it. So if you take those scholarships away and just give them that flat out check, you're going to have those TV rights coming in. That's going to go straight to the players, and it's never going to come to the school. All of those programs get defunded. That goes away. You're done. You're never going to have a daughter be able to go play, honestly, any sport, because none of them bring in any money. And I hate to say that, but that's true. They just don't generate revenue. So if you don't generate revenue, this turns into a business at the end of the day. And if you don't make money on something, you cut it. That's what you do. If you can't make any profit or generate any publicity off of it, then it's out the window. And there goes how many countless kids growing up without a dream on anything at that point.
Well, that's
so unless
just
you can
it.
play football or basketball,
Yeah.
who gives a damn at that point, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point, because how is the university going to respond if they're cutting checks to these players instead of that money coming to the university? How does the university reconfigure those losses instead of gaining that money? How do they do that? They're going to raise the price of tuition than it already is at an inflated level now. So if tuition costs this much, they're going to have to double that to make up for the loss that they weren't getting, because, oh, we're paying this guy now. Well, I'm sorry, but this guy who's not playing sports, your tuition's about tripled in price now. I'm sorry. And again, like you said, point guard at Kansas, is he going to get paid the same amount as the female golfer from Wake Forest? No, that's just not going to happen, folks. It just can't. There's just no way to police that. There's no way to make sure that that money comes in. And not every university has the same checkbook. It's all different. So, yeah, unless the NCAA is going to start pulling wads of cash out of their fat wallet and making it an even playing field for these universities at the specific levels, you just can't pay everybody across the board. It's an impossible task. It's just not feasible to do. So, yeah, I'm still stuck in the middle there, man. I think there's likeness rights, media appearances, stuff like that. Absolutely, kids should be getting some money on that, but I don't think they should be getting it until their college playing days are completely through.
Absolutely. So I'm 100% in the middle ground. So here's my opinion, and probably my stance on this whole thing is, today you look at it, it's an unfair situation. The kids should be making something. Now, I don't think they need a check cut to them to entice them to come to a school. I think the current setup and program it's flawed for sure.
Oh, it's a disaster. I mean, we're talking a leaky canoe with how many bullet holes in the bottom, and you can only plug so many of them before a new one springs up. I mean, that's where we're at with college athletics right now. You address one problem, you put some duct tape over it, and you look at the next hole. And by the time you get that one patched, that old one's already sprung a leak again. So, are we at the point where we just kind of have to sink the canoe and start completely fresh over, like we did with the postseason? We completely got rid of the BCS because it was a completely flawed system. So we're done with it. Now we made this new one. We've got this playoff. Well, here we are patching holes again because now this doesn't work. But that's another topic. We'll touch on that another time.
No, you bring up a good point though. So here's how I look at it. I try to just like break it down to: is it legal? Is it ethical? And is it compliant, right? And I think about that like every day, whether it's home or life or driving or talking. Like I gotta keep myself in check. Any of those that really know me, you know what I'm talking about. I gotta keep myself in check. Keep myself in check. Anyway, you look at the business that the NCAA has. It's a moneymaker. It's a big moneymaker. So there's a lot right. Now, how they make the money may not be right, but there's a lot right. They're making money. They're making a lot of it. So there's something there. Now, how do you get that money a good way? Not a lot of people can make money a good way. So you got to be careful, and you're going to have to step on some lines every now and then to make money. That's just the way the world works sometimes. My suggestion and how I would proceed if I were given all the power and authority of NCAA rules and regulations, immediately I would put a stop to the regulation of their personal rights. You, as an individual, can do whatever you want outside of class time. You are an amateur. You're getting a scholarship. We're going to pay for your schooling. We're going to pay for your room and board. We're going to pay for your books. We're going to take care of you, and we're going to give you a world-class education. We're going to give you world-class trainers. We're going to give you world-class coaches who are making $9 million a year. That's another topic.
Yep.
Another time. Anyway, you're going to have all of this access. You're going to have TV. Like, they're going to watch you every Saturday or Thursday. Like, you're going to be blown up all over TV. We have media rights like crazy. We're not going to give you a chunk of that, but here's what I would do. The current system's making a ton of money. What I would do for the students at this point is you're getting a fair shake. If you make it 4 years, you keep your GPA good, and you're in one of these top schools, you're probably getting a $240,000 education or more. That you put the TV rights in the spotlight and everything else they get with it, it's probably worth more than $1 million when you really calculate a lot of the stuff that they get when they're the greatest in the country and the top of the top. You just think of the top 50 collegiate athletes, probably $300 million worth of holy crap that comes flying at you that me and you couldn't get unless we had $300 million or $3 million, right? If I wanted that spotlight, I would have to pay some dough. Now these kids are going to get that handed to them for free. Great. Now every single college athlete, I don't care what you do on your free time, if you make money any way, shape, or form, unless it's illegal, unethical, or non-compliant with our rules and policies, which should be pretty easy to come by. It's just day-to-day ethics of being a person.
Well, therein lies a problem. We have a very tough time keeping a lot of these kids.
We're not doing politics.
No, definitely not tonight. No, I mean, even here in Nebraska, we've had some stupid things happen. Like things that kids know better, especially 18 to 20-year-olds should know better, but they still go out and do these stupid things like stealing bicycles and, flashing their dong at people. It happens. They're going to do it. And then, of course, the, common house party. It happens. It happens.
I like how you said that. It happens.
It does.
Flashing your dong. It happens.
I'm not gonna sit here and judge. I've done my share of stupid things, and I wasn't paying or playing college football, so it's not like I had anything else to do. They got something to lose. That's what I'm saying. They have something to lose, and they're still going out and they're going to do stuff that's stupid. So, yeah, but I think there needs to be some absolute clarity within the NCAA about, like, okay, this is our set of rules, but we're not going to exactly tell you how we police it. So there needs to be a lot of clarity coming from the university, the NCAA, the conferences, everybody as a whole needs to come together on this and really harp down on these kids. Like, this is how it's got to work, okay? These are the rules in place. Be a decent human being, like you said. And that's easier said than done, unfortunately. And, before we finish up here, I wanted to say we touched on like the evolution of the game because paying college athletes was never an issue. How long ago? And it became when we got video games and lots of TV rights. Well, we're in the age of cable is dying right now. Cable is dying. Like I've talked to people that say, like, within DirecTV, like, they're trying to get shut down and move strictly to streaming within the next 2 years inside of it. And the 6 phone calls I got a week ago from DirecTV trying to get me to come back, I brought that up every time. And they're like, no, we're not getting rid of satellite. Yeah, you are. So if satellite and cable are going to be a thing of the past, what is going to happen as far as viewership, eyeballs, TV sets, computer screens now? As far as how is that going to play into what should a person make for their likeness on TV? Because it's not just TV now. And in fact, it might not even be TV at one point. It's going to be all streaming. So that's going to play a huge factor in it. And I think that really makes the water gray. But let's, since we're on the topic of college stuff, one of the topics I want to touch on sometime down the line here would be, if you haven't read the book, Death to the BCS, I highly recommend it, even though obviously the BCS is dead and gone, but it opens so many things up that I wasn't privy to before reading it, and this was before the BCS was gotten rid of. But the amount of money that the bowl games make is staggering. It's insane what the bowl games make. That's a lot of money that'd be going towards college athletes, but I digress. So that's something I want to touch on at some point, because that's a lot of money getting thrown around that's going to people who, let's face it, do not need it. So that's a topic I want to address. What do you got?
So I'm gonna round out kind of my thoughts here. I was kind of going on a rant there of how I think it would be if I were the one in charge, and like I had said, I'll just simply state it. Like, your intellectual property is yours. Your likeness, it's a constitutional right. That's my problem. Like, through this whole thing, there's a lot of legal jargon. There's a lot of different things that complicate and muddy the water. But at the end of the day, I am me, and I own me. Nobody else can own me.
Right? Well, and that's exactly it. You are an individual, and the only right that you truly have is to be yourself, like you said. And essentially what these players are doing when they sign to play for a university is they're signing their rights away to that university, to the NCAA for the next 3 to 4 years. I'm giving up my rights to make money off myself, be an individual, do certain things that I would be able to do had I not signed up to do this. You're signing your rights away to play this game. And yeah, you can justify that with a chance to play at the next level, be a star, so on and so forth. But yeah, it is. It's a damn shame that that's where we're at with the game now, because yeah, you're giving up everything that defines you as an individual to play a game that you're not making any money off of. And you can sugarcoat it any way you want, but that's it, black and white. Now, is it worth it? For some players, yes. For a lot of players, it's not. And how many could we talk to right now that would say, man, I probably would have done it differently, who got injured halfway through their career, who never even had a shot at playing at the next level anyway. And, if I had a chance, I would have done it different. It's unfortunate, but that's the life we live in, and that's the life of a college athlete right now.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think me and you are on the same page on a lot of this stuff, and obviously the current system's flawed and has a lot of issues. The just flat out checks, there's a lot of questions, a lot of arguments against that, and it gets really complicated. It's super, like, you look at just legality wise, there's so much to look into. We don't have enough time. We could do a 5-hour podcast and freaking scratch the surface on the legalities of
for sure. For sure. And I think this is a good starting point. Like, I think we could definitely make this a multi-part series, because this is a good intro to it. Like I was talking with the bowl games and stuff like that, the corruption there. This is a good entrance to it. Like you said, we want to be a very wide open podcast and talk about many different subjects. I think this is one that we're going to be doing many, many times. It's going to be kind of an ongoing thing. So I'm liking how we started it. It looks like we're about an hour in already. So definitely want to touch on the bowl games soon. Anything kind of along these lines that we would lead into with another episode of something like this?
It's crazy we're an hour in already.
I know, right?
It feels like we've been talking for like 5 minutes, but anyway, so yeah, I'll look into that death to the BCS. I've heard of it, and
when you do specifically, actually, surprised I don't have my copy. I think it's on my desk at work, but there's a revised edition that came out after. I mean, this was years ago, but when the big Fiesta Bowl scandal happened, they had to revise it the next year after that happened, because of all the corruption there. So yeah, definitely check it out. And what's funny, like being Nebraska fans, you're reading through chapter to chapter, like, okay, where is it coming? Where is it? Where is it? You know it's coming. You know we're coming up. No, nothing yet. And a few chapters in, boom, there we are. Okay, but it's not bad. But no, with closing thoughts, I guess another topic I want to touch on, one of the message boards I'm on, that we were talking a little bit about players getting the illegal payouts, the handlers, the bagmen, the shady guys with the track phone, the burner phones. Hey, I need some cash, make this play, envelope happens. That's something we need to talk about. And I also want to talk about, the bagmen in general. There's a lot of really well written pieces about that it's so fascinating, like how these guys with this extra cash that want to contribute to the university that they are a fan of or an alum of, they just kind of meet the right people. They've got the extra disposable cash that they can kind of make disappear. It's really fascinating. And even just the flat out mistreatment of some of these players. Like I remember a year or so ago reading a detailed chronological happening event from like Florida State, and it made how bad some of the guys there really, really had it. So I think we've got college football. I love college football so much, and I'll be honest. I'll just say it. Some of the corruption, I think that's kind of why I enjoy it. The drama, it's incredible. Like there's so much happening with college football. It's insane. So I think we got a good start here with this one. Any other things you want to touch on quick?
No, for sure. We got a good start with this one. We can take this a long ways, and this won't be beating a dead horse. The horse is far from dead.
Oh no, this one's got a lot of life left in it, broken leg and all.
Yeah, I'd love to kill this horse. I'll work on it. Sorry, PETA. Anyway, we'll do the wrap it up with kind of quick 3 thought processes. I'm gonna throw this on to you, Tony, because I want to know what you want to talk about in the future. So I got 3 thought processes of future episodes. So conspiracy theories. What do you want to talk about?
Okay, conspiracy theories. I guess I'm just gonna make it pretty wide open. My personal take, like I touched a little bit about this last week, but politics in general, the main reason I don't follow it like as much as some people do, not just because I don't like to fall on a specific side of the aisle, but also because personally, I think there's not a lot of reason to do so when most of it's predetermined anyway. And I'm going to kind of leave it vague like that. But as far as like what we could discuss politics wise, a lot of that's all just a complete blanket because it's just keeping the masses kind of distracted from the fact that your voice isn't being heard anyway. You have no input. Anything you say on a message board online, it has no bearing on anything because you're just distracting yourself instead of us having to do it. So have at it while we pull the strings from behind the scenes. That's kind of my vague statement there, but hit me with another.
So that was kind of question two, because you didn't talk about conspiracies at all. You went straight to
Okay.
politics and shut me down on politics. So that's interesting. So we'll move that one to another time. What is a conspiracy you actually believe in or could be possible?
Okay. I guess the big one would be the fact that the entire presidential race I think it's a complete and utter sham. I do.
It is a sham. Jesus.
And I'm not just talking like, okay, yeah, everybody, the voting process. No, I'm talking about the whole thing. Who ends up president? I don't think it matters anyway, because are we really putting one person in power to control everything? Oh, well, no, we've got Congress and people that are in power that run this country. You've never heard their name. You've never going to see their face. They're shadow people. Those are the people that run the country. That's my conspiracy belief, I guess.
So I don't know if that's really conspiracy. I think that was more your politics. So I'm gonna move.
Well,
that one
it
down
all
to
kind of comes full circle, man.
I'm gonna move that one down to the politics because I love that thought process. And
All
we
right.
can have a conversation about elections and how that works in the country. But come on, JFK, UFOs, like
Oh, sure.
there's so many conspiracy thought processes out
Oh,
there.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
one fascinates you?
The JFK one's that's a big one. That's very interesting. There's so many ins and outs and intricacies there. It's insane to think about how all that had to fall perfectly into place to be as black and white as they put it out to the masses. UFOs, man, I just one time I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, that seems totally plausible. Now I'm more like, it's probably more likely secret tech that we already have that people are seeing. It's not somebody from the sky, it's somebody from the ground that you're probably seeing up in the sky. That's kind of where I'm at with it now. If there was a race of aliens within our grasp, they're going to get to us before we get to them, right? Like, because we don't have that technology yet. We can't get to them. And if they can get to us, we're toast. Like Stephen Hawking even said, do not put us out there for somebody to see.
Yep.
Do not do that. And then what do they put like a flashing light out in space somewhere, like, hey, come visit us, come tourists, I'm over here, come here. Why would you do that? Because we're screwed now. You just gave them GPS coordinates to where we are, and we can't defend ourselves. Thanks a lot. Hope I'm in the ground by the time that happens.
For sure. No, that's good. Those are some good ones we can have a little fun with and have some goof off weeks with. Last one I want to ask you. We touched on it last week. What you do plenty of pro wrestling podcasts with Phil. What are you looking at right now with MMA? Now, we know Brock Lesnar obviously has cut ties. He's back with WWE. So we lose a little bit of that lightning and thunder that we were looking for with UFC to have that big heavyweight uprising. What excites you right now with UFC or MMA in general? Now that that was a big loss. It really was, to have that feature card. Like, that would have been a huge one. As you mentioned earlier, as we move into the age of less TV and more apps and more streaming, UFC was the first one to jump on board and join this ESPN Plus and went full on streaming. That was Brock's decision maker. When UFC announced that, he saw that the projected profits aren't there. So he pretty much said, done. I'm going to go back to where I can make some money. I don't have to get a black eye and have to wrestle Daniel Cormier and potentially get my ass kicked. Or if I do kick Daniel Cormier's ass, like, it's going to be a hard fight. I could just go to WWE, do some train stuff. It's still hard work. Don't get me wrong. Don't hate me, WWE fans. It's still hard work. I get it. But that was his ultimate decision. So what do you see with the streaming thought process in the future of MMA, and what are you excited to see in the near future? And then we can wrap this bitch up.
Okay. Yeah. Last thoughts, I guess, on this would be with Brock Lesnar specifically. You touched on a lot of it there. I mean, specifically the fact that his workload working for WWE is much, much, much lighter because he's paid a huge amount of money for very, very little in-ring work and very little in-ring appearances. Like, he doesn't have to go on the weekly show. Like, it's rare that he comes more than once a week, every 5-6 weeks. That's just how it was, even when he was a champion. He never liked the workload of the road schedule. That was one of the big things that made him leave the first time. And yeah, the reason he went back instead of MMA is because, yeah, he does not have to actually go and get hurt doing MMA, because coming up here this week, June 7th, is the Saudi Arabia show that brings in insane amounts of cash. And if he's going to be there, and he could just do a run-in, 2-3 years worth of salary off of that one little run-in, being in Saudi Arabia for that show. So yeah, it's a no-brainer, dude. It's a no-brainer. You go do that. Why give up that payday to potentially go lose to Daniel Cormier? Nope. He made the absolute right decision. Love him, hate him, indifferent to him. He made the right call for himself, and that's what he's always done. I can't really disagree with the guy. But I think personally with UFC, they need to look more into a format like WWE did, because one of the big things that kind of pushed me away from UFC, other than the fact that there's so many shows, so every other week, it got to be too much, and other stuff come up, and I just kind of lost track of the product, and a lot of the guys I liked were different things push you away. But I think what would bring a lot of people back is if they kind of did the WWE Network format, where you get the big show every month, you get the specials. You could do something like that with UFC, where you get the one big show a month, you get the one big fight special. You could put like a 2-match card together for a special every other week. I think a flat out rate for a WWE specific style, like I know UFC does that kind of now, but I think they should really remodel it the way that WWE Network has done it. I think you could do it for a lot cheaper than the $65-$70 a pay-per-view, and that would bring a lot of people back. Because I think a lot of it's the price, unless you want to go to like a Buffalo Wild Wings and be in a crowded area paying for overpriced drinks anyway. I think it's a money thing, and I think they could make just as much money for a much cheaper streaming service if they base it off of what WWE has done. And Phil and I had touched on this a while back in a video, actually. WWE versus UFC, they're kind of fighting over the same fans anyway, whether or not they want to admit that they follow each other's product or not. But I think that's one way they should do it. And lastly, one of the things I'm really kind of looking forward to in MMA is to see if UFC ever kind of reintroduces a better tournament format, because I've watched more Bellator, I think, recently than I have UFC, just because I really enjoy that tournament format. Your thoughts?
No, I agree. I love the tournament format. I have UFC Fight Pass because I blow all my money on stupid shit like that. They have some really good ideas from other companies that they're sponsoring. They're working through on this Fight Pass. So I'm excited to see some ideas start to trickle in to the UFC. But you're absolutely right. You're fighting over the same customer. You're fighting over the same audience right now. And you're limited on fighters. So UFC's doing the right thing. They're buying up these smaller companies. They're giving them a platform. You're working through some of these fighters, and you're trying to get new talent, which the talent depth we thought, after after we lost Mighty Mouse, we thought that division was gone, but now that we have talent to backfill that position, and so I think long term UFC's good, here to stay. There's a knowledge gap, so you think of your average WWE fan, they're on the internet a lot. They're playing on their phone a lot. They're playing on their laptop a lot. Your average UFC fan, it could be a wide range. You got those same folks that are watching WWE, but you got a good chunk of them that are casual fans. And a casual fan's not going to buy a subscription to ESPN, the ESPN Plus. Sorry, they're not going to buy that subscription. They especially if the fight card isn't that great. So the only way UFC is going to pull what they need to pull is huge fight cards while they're running through this ESPN Plus deal. ESPN's got to meet them halfway, and they're going to have to offer some deals on here of, hey, sign up now, buy this pay-per-view 30 days out, like get people pumped for it. The biggest disappointment as a UFC fan, when I go to buy a pay-per-view, sometimes I buy it a week in advance just so I don't forget, and I just have it loaded up on my phone so it alerts me, hey, you got a fight tomorrow, and then somebody drops out, like, and then it's a bummer. It's a big bummer. I spent $60, $70 sometimes on a fight, and I'm not going to see who I wanted to see this whole time. Now I can, call and get my money back. But, if they offered something, hey, if you buy this 30 days out, we'll give you $10 off. Hey, if that main event drops out, probably not going to care as much. I'll still watch it. Like, I got it $10 cheaper because I paid for it ahead of time. Just some thoughts, rambling a little bit there. So yeah, let's wrap this up real quick.
All right.
Any last thoughts? Any words of wisdom? What do you got going on? And what's our? I guess we got some topics for next week we already discussed.
Oh yeah, we're already set for next week, so I guess let's end it there, and I'm gonna pop some more Tylenol and hope my back pain eventually goes away or gets better.
Sounds good, brother. Good seeing you, and thanks everybody for watching, and subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. We'll see you all next week.
Later, guys.